And along with partial participation also comes this essential belief that anyone can use assistive technology. Okay? No one's disability, cognitive or physical, is too great for us to find a tool or develop a tool. Okay? And there are studies out there that you can reference, okay, that answer this question. Everyone can everyone can benefit from assistive technology. So let's talk about access. When you're looking at access, you want to take into account the specific physical needs of the individual. Because of this, we produce nearly 50 different kinds of switches, okay, to provide you with the best access. I said we started with this switch. What's this called now?
Big Red.
Big Red, thank you. Who said that? Okay, you've got one score. Are you keeping score, Cindy?
Yes, so the drop will be weighted in favor.
Everything is weighted here, and there's a caret at the end of all of these questions.
Is that the same as a Big Mac?
It is not the same as a Big Mac. Take 1 point away from her. But she gets a point for asking, so you're even. You're even, okay? This is the Big Red, an older one. Now you can change the top to different colors, okay? But this is not always the right size, shape, or color for an individual to motivate them or to provide them with appropriate access. So because of that, we also make switches. This is called, anyone know what this is called for a point?
Plate switch?
Yes! She gets a point. I hope you've got everyone's name over there, Cindy.
Yeah.
Plate switch, okay? This happens to be somewhat more waterproof or water resistant, typically perhaps used on a wheelchair as a foot switch. This switch here, anyone know what this one is called? Ribbon switch, okay? And I brought that here as an example. This is one of my favorite switches, okay? This switch can be mounted, and unlike many switches that have a hard stop, with this switch, as the student or individual passes through it, it activates something, okay? Now, we're getting to this in the next slide, but I might as well mention it now. A switch is useless without being plugged into something, right? There's nothing motivating about this or this, okay? So we're going to get to that in just a minute. We're going to look at what the switch can turn on. But this is what's essential. And this is what I struggle with, and I'm sure that Cindy does also. When you recognize that a student needs help with access, okay, please do not just throw a Big Red in front of all of them. Okay? We work hard to provide specialized switches. This switch here, and again, if we had all day or all week, we could spend time on all of this switch here, which is relatively new, is called Impulse. And you can see a video on YouTube about it. This is typically worn by individuals with ALS. And it's an EMG switch, and it measures the electrical pulse that goes through a muscle in a location that you might have left that you can control, so that you can do things like use a dynamic display communication device or drive your wheelchair. Okay? So there's a range of these switches. Now, so it's your job to make sure that you're going to find the right switch for the individual. There is a resource that is relatively new that I love that will help you do this, okay? And I think you can probably get it from Bridges, but I also have it. And if you go to www.ablenetinc.com, right? Everyone write that down. I'm watching you. Some of you are not writing it down, okay? There's an area called the international site, which is kind of my area, okay? And our team. And what we do there, if we've produced a kind of a catalog, but it doesn't have any pricing, okay? It's really more for reference. And in that catalog, you can see a switch grid. And here is a switch grid of all of the different switches. This is just one page. There's multiple pages of all of these switches, okay? Here's what's important about it. The members on your team who are working with you to be satisfied about the recommendation of the switch, OTs, PTs, speech therapists, parents, this has some details that they're going to want to know. How much pressure is required to activate that switch? What kind of plug does it have? What's the size of it? What kind of feedback do you get? Is there tactile feedback? Is there auditory feedback? All of this you take into account when you're trying to determine the correct access for the individual. Okay? Is this helpful? Is it helpful to not know a lot about switches and then to know that there's so many of them you feel overwhelmed? Is that helpful? Okay, this is why I don't want you to be overwhelmed. You can go to this area, you can print this out, keep it as a chart, and just keep it in your classroom or at home or in the office as a reminder that when you see a kid, and you'll see them in the community, you'll see them every day, and they're all being forced to use one kind of switch, think to yourself, what might be better? What location might be better? Not on their table, but by their head or by their knee, okay? Just like what we saw in the Dr. Laz video. Not all switches go behind the head, right? Some go to the side. Okay. So, let's keep going. So, as I mentioned, switches are just not for hitting or for swiping, okay? They're for activating. And you can use switches for a kind of control. And I mentioned here something about self-regulation, but really, that just implies how a switch allows someone to control their environment, their computer, their communication device, okay, in a way that they couldn't before because of their physical limitations or disabilities. So you need a switch. You need something to plug it into. In this case, we have something called a switch-adapted toy, right? Or you can plug it into a computer, etc. And we're going to look at some cool examples of what you can plug switches into. We also produce computer access products, which also came up today with our meeting with SMART, which is it's very powerful as they become more and more wireless. Okay? So that way you can have students around the classroom being able to interface, okay, without leaving their location, let's say with what's happening on the SMART board. Okay? And all of these have been designed and modified in such a way so that individuals with particular physical disabilities are able to better access the computer. How many of you are familiar with Tracker Pro? I'm just interested. Just a few? Okay. Tracker Pro is new to the AbleNet family. And it's from a company called Medentech, which is a Canadian company in Edmonton, which we recently brought in. And we're very excited about this. This would be utilized by someone who typically can't use a switch at all. Okay? They just access the computer by using a camera. Talk to Bridges about that. They'll show you. Okay, now we've talked about access. Let's talk about communication. Here's a graph of some generations of communication that we've produced. Okay, we started with something called the Big Mac. Anyone ever heard of a Big Mac? I don't mean McDonald's. Okay, the Big Mac is a single message communicator.
Hi, my name is Adam. What's your name?
Same message over and over.
Hi, my name is Adam. What's your name?
Okay, so now let's upgrade this. Let's say, as I said, think about switches. This is not the right size, shape, color for me. Okay, I can't hold this. I can't put it on my desk. So now I'm going to plug in a switch. How about our ribbon switch? Okay, so now when I swipe the ribbon that's been mounted.
Hi, my name is Adam.
Okay.
What's your name?
So now we're connecting them. So just because a device is a certain characteristic doesn't mean that you can't plug in a switch, okay? Because this, again, isn't going to accommodate everyone. And next we're going to look at what else you can do, what else you can plug them into. So we've got sequential communicators, like a step-by-step, that lets you say messages in sequence.
I love this dinosaur.
I'm talking about this dinosaur.
I can make it move. Can you? Look at him walk across the table. Isn't that cool?
I'm going to make him move for you in just a minute, okay? So, and we move up to devices that have more messages on them, like the Super Talker, okay, which is a progressive communicator. It lets you have only one message or up to 8 messages, okay? And more recently, we launched these little guys called Talking Bricks, which keeps talking to my son over here.
Good morning, Milo.
That's my son's name, Milo, sorry. So with this, you can add auditory language to anywhere in the classroom. You can do that with Velcro, or in fact, this has a magnet, and I'm looking for something that's metal. Ooh, this is great. No, not real metal. What? Ah.
Morning, Milo.
So, what might we record on the door? Come on, this is for a prize. Open.
Don't forget your backpack.
Are you keeping track?
Good morning, Milo.
In order to record on this very simple, brand new device, you hold it down until the message has been played.
Good morning, Milo.
The light will come on. Milo, don't forget your backpack.
Milo, don't forget your backpack.
Wow, that sounds great. That's super, okay? That's a talking bricks. And what you might see, and we used to have a product called Talking Symbols, and you go into classrooms and you see people have labeled everything in the classroom, okay? They've added language to everything. Cubbies, schedules, all using these very simple devices. This only records 10 seconds, it has a rechargeable battery, and you can use it over and over again, okay? So we're going to look at some ways of how we utilize some of these devices. So, as I said, Big Mac single message, step-by-steps, multiple message. I talk to, this lets you have two messages side by side. Very typically on this device, you might see something like, yes, no.
Yes? No.
Okay? So now someone who doesn't have a voice always has access, right? This is a very simple example. Let's say this is not the right size, shape for the individual. What would we plug into this? Switch. Thank you. Okay. The right switch. Now, just a bit about communication research. And some of these slides I would have skipped, but I think that for some of us this is new. This question never seems to go away. And I looked to Cindy to see if this still comes up. I just recently gave a session in Dubai, and this was one of their #1 concerns, in fact, in the Middle East right now, which is that if a student or an individual begins to use a communication device, like some of these simple communication devices, that they will stop trying to communicate on their own. How many of you have heard this before? Okay. Okay, so this is our group, good group. All right, this is not a challenge, and this is why. And just write this down and Google it and print it out. And it is a study. It's actually a compilation of studies, okay, from Silverman in 1989. Okay, and if you can't find it, let me know and we'll find it together. And this is what they did. They took these 25 different studies that included a wide range of people with verbalization difficulties. And this was the result when they gave them a voice output communication device, or a VOCA. Okay? So they gave it all to them. 132 had an increase in speech attempts. Okay? So when they had a Big Mac.
Hi, my name is Adam. What's your name? Hi, my name is Adam. What's your name?
She said Nicole. Good. Okay? What they actually found is there was an increase. Okay? Perhaps they were modeling to the device, right? Listening to the device and modeling and repeating it. 204, or nearly half, really, had no impact. We know, based on professionals in the field, that it had a huge impact in their lives because they were socializing for the first time, potentially. They were communicating. They were placing their own orders. They were telling stories and jokes, right? Okay? But it had no impact on their ability to attempt to verbalize or vocalize. 2, in the compilation of these studies, 2 saw a decrease, which one might say is statistically irrelevant. Okay? So, the next time you get this question, okay, please know, and this PowerPoint we will make available. I don't know how. Okay. It isn't yet, but please know that it will get there as I rush to the airport somehow, okay? And that way you can utilize all of this, okay? And use it, talk about it, use this PowerPoint, okay? And link to those YouTube videos. I don't embed the videos so you can link to them on your own, okay? So this should help people who have a lot of apprehension about using voice output communication devices, okay? It should help them feel that it's the right path to be taking.